launching internet satellites in 2019. So there will be a new global internet service. And in fact, 2019, many are predicting, will be the year that the internet worldwide officially becomes bigger than TV this year in terms of minutes spent consuming content. I was pretty sure it already was, but perhaps just in this country, but now worldwide it will be bigger than TV as a information gathering tool or content distributing tool. So those are some of the the big target points that we're going to see in 2019. There is a prediction, not to panic anybody, that there will be a significant economic recession early this year, and that it will spread globally. We're starting to see some of those effects now. So we may have a recession. And depending on how things like trade talks go and so on, it may be moderate to big. Maybe not as big as the one in 2009, but it could cause us some difficulty. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about quickly? Cost of solar panels are going to drop to about $1.50 per watt. That's pretty great. For those of you who are interested in sustainable energy. And let's see. Tesla. Looks like Tesla is set to produce more cars than ever before. Hopefully in a price range that people can actually afford. And so we're going to see a lot more work being done in space, particularly preparing for more space travel, more satellites, but more than that, space stations, places to be in space. So those are some of the things that just around the corner we'll be dealing with. But now we started talking about last week and want to continue talking about beyond just 2019. So we're going to talk about 2 predictions this week, and then next week we'll go on to other ones. Next week we'll talk about the future of human evolution and the future of artificial intelligence. But this week we're talking about the future of the economy, since we've heard that prediction that we are probably in for a recession this year. And we're also going to talk about health. As this is a wellness show, we're concerned with how our healthcare system will improve, or will it improve, in the years to come. So let's start with the economy here. We're in this process, and I talked about this extensively, I guess back in 2014 and 2015 when we were doing the series on the transition era. That's the era we are in now. We are in transition to a more sustainable, healthier, abundant lifestyle. And that includes our economic system and how we view money. And that requires quite extensive change in our capitalist system in this country and in other countries too. So some of these things that we'll talk about may seem a bit impossible considering where we are right now, but because of the changes that are happening, you can see how it will lead to these things happening. For instance, last week we talked about a universal income, basic income for everybody. A lot of people see that as impossible, but when you follow the pattern, when you think it out, when you think about what is to come economically, it will not only be possible, it will be sort of inevitable. Because it's just simply something we will have to have. So part of these changes are going to lead to global economic instability, and we've talked about that. But we won't get too gloomy about it. But this transition period, which I say we're in now, but will certainly intensify between the next 20 years, so 2020 to 2040. We'll see a percentage of today's working age population going into retirement. The baby boomers are starting to retire now, and that will be increasing. And at the same time, you'll see robotics and AI systems advancing significantly, which will replace certain jobs. There will be a labor shortage, which will contribute to technology taking over some of these jobs. And so companies will be investing in software and technologies that will make them more productive and reducing the total number of human workers they need to operate. So some of these jobs, after those doing them now retire, won't continue. So we'll see these technologies flourishing throughout industries across the board, and it will displace many workers. We have to be honest about that. This is what is coming. It's something that's been happening, but now the pace is just going to accelerate. But now here's where the twist comes. Once enough is invested into these artificial intelligence and robotic programs, there will be a surplus of human labor, even though the working age population is smaller. And this will be a result of the technology pushing a lot of people out of the marketplace. So there will be more people competing for fewer jobs, and employers will be able to basically control salaries in a way that will make it very difficult for many people to continue on. AI and robotics programs will become cheaper and more productive, so it'll be cheaper to use them than human workers, and unemployment and underemployment rates will become chronic in a way that we haven't seen, I think, since the Depression era in the 1930s. So, we're basically talking about 100 years after the Great Depression, we're going to see this happening again. And the wealth divide, which we've talked about, will be continuing to grow. But here's what's going to happen. We'll have this rise of populism that we're feeling now is just going to continue on. And there will be such such disgruntlement among the people that these populist tendencies will continue. So now we're talking about the Gen Xers. That's my generation, and the millennials. That's the generation that's behind me. As we begin to replace the boomer generation throughout government and globally, and take leadership positions, we will see these changes happen. Just because demographically it has to. Millennials are now the largest generation in America and the world. Well, larger than mine. Oh well. And they number just over 100 million in the United States. And globally they are 1.7 billion. And many of them are reaching voting age already. They will be very influential. And become a very large voting bloc. So I think that particularly beginning in this upcoming election that's coming in 2020, you're going to see, we already saw some big changes happening in this midterm election, but I think the 2020 election is going to really be where the millennial influence is felt very powerfully. But Gen Xers, don't despair, we will still be influential as well. Okay. But both of our generations have very liberal leanings as compared to what the boomers evolved into. Now remember, the boomers, they came of age, or they were young, in their 20s and teens during the 60s when there was a lot of progressive movement. But as they got older, as they moved into their middle age, we went into the 80s, and we had the Reagan Revolution, and this huge pullback and this huge focus on real materialism. I mean, we went from a approach where we had a president that was talking about the great society, that because we were such a wealthy society, we could now extend that to making everyone's life better. We went from that to a focus on greed is good materialism. And we're still, I mean, that's still been the guiding force for over 35 years since that time. But now we're we're starting to see a change, and our generations will be the ones to do it. And for millennials in particular, they're the ones that are probably getting hit the most, although we, some of us have led the way in the Gen X generation. But they are struggling to attain the same kind of employment and level of wealth that their parents had. And with an unstable economy and student loan debt, they will be looking to enact laws and initiatives that are more egalitarian, or some may say socialist in nature. And this is where our populism will probably head. Now we saw, the populism of Donald Trump, as opposed to the populism of Bernie Sanders. This will just continue. Which way it will go will depend very much on millennials and Gen Xers. So we'll have populist leaders, and if these trends are correct, they will be increasingly liberally oriented, and we'll have technology progressing very fast,